everyone, and welcome to Musing, music for the adventurous listener here on CJSW 90.9 FM in Calgary. My name is Janna Sailor, and I'm delighted to be your host for this hour of musical discovery and conversation. Today we are continuing our features on extraordinary female creators for the month of March, and today's guest is violinist Victoria Grynenko, a Ukrainian-born, multifaceted artist based in Edmonton, Alberta. In addition to violin performances, she focuses on research and educational projects involving rarely performed works for the violin. She is currently co-chair for Arts Habitat Edmonton and was a founder of Job Hub Ukraine, a platform assisting Ukrainian refugees with their job searches here in Canada. Her research and graduate work included exploring the relationships between violin and dance, and she was the recipient of the prestigious Kuhn Scholarship from the University of Ottawa. We are currently listening to an excerpt from Victoria's latest album, Unbroken, Music from Ukraine. Let's listen in. Hello, Victoria. I'm so thrilled to be speaking to you today on Musing. Welcome.
Thank you.
So, first of all, congratulations. Your latest album is absolutely stunning, and it features the works of living contemporary Ukrainian composers, as well as a Ukrainian-Canadian composer, Anna Pigornia. What was your personal journey in creating this album, and why was it essential that this album be made?
So when the full-scale war started in 2022, it was a big shock for me and for everyone around, and especially for people in Ukraine. So at first it was impossible to do anything. It was kind of very hard to read, to listen to music, or just all in awe, like how is it possible that there is war in my country, even though there was kind of partial war since 2014 with the annexation of Crimea, but it came kind of in little parts. So it was like little things were taken away from Ukraine, and then there's the war there, and of course there was lots of soldiers kind of coming out of the east of Ukraine, but just the full scale, and I think the way it started, it was very shocking, was kind of explosions all over and the bombs, and it was evening here and early morning in Ukraine. Yeah, so that really shocked me, and I wanted to do something later on once I regained my ability to do something creatively and wanted to promote the art of Ukraine. That was the reason for this album.
And obviously this is a tremendously personal journey and work. How did you go about selecting the composers and collaborators for this project?
I worked with some other Ukrainian composers before, so I thought I probably want to play something new. I don't know if I want to repeat any of the works. I felt like I want to engage kind of with the new feeling, kind of afresh with works. So I knew Boris Loginov. He's my former classmate from Kiev, Ukraine. So we stayed in touch through social media, and just overall I knew that he continued being a musician back in Ukraine, and many people didn't continue doing art after graduating. I knew he was composing, and I saw some of the things that he was writing. I didn't know if he has anything for strings, think I asked him before, and he had very short pieces. So, well, maybe I'll check with him. And then the piece that he has is related to war. It was written because of the war, and this is like the main thing, the only piece that is related to war, not directly. Yeah, then I knew Zoltan Almashi from some common friends. He's a cellist and teacher, composer as well in Kiev. So I knew of him, and I knew that because he's a string player, he collaborates with a lot of other string players, and he writes music for strings. So I thought, yeah, he must have something. So then I contacted him, and he sent me a lot of works for strings to see what can work, and then I chose this, the duo. Then I think Oleg Bezborodko's Fantasia for the Cossack. I've heard it before, I think, and I really loved the piece. I thought, yeah, that would be really cool to play because it's one of the popular operas from like 1860s, I think, by Gulak Artemovsky, the famous Ukrainian composer at that time. So we learned the opera in school, we learned all the themes, knew the history of it. So to see, and then I heard somebody playing it on YouTube. I'm like, yeah, that would be really cool to play. So I thought, yeah, that's a nice and kind of hopeful piece. I'm not sure how I came across Anna Pitgorn. I think I knew of her also earlier when I was still maybe in my undergrad. I was looking for new works to play because I had some other performances where I was doing solo concerts with contemporary works. But it didn't end up working then, I think, or like I didn't find the piece that I was looking for, but I knew of her and I thought, yeah, she's Ukrainian Canadian. Then I looked on her website and found this one, and I said, okay, it's kind of coming together. I have a duo from Sultan Almashi. That would be maybe another duo, and then that one was very cool with the Doors. I thought, yeah, that would work, and it had a little bit of a connection to the revolution in 2014. That's when the work was written, so that's kind of when the full-scale war actually started. Revolution of Dignity, and then annexation of Crimea, so 2014. And I think when Anna wrote it, she said that it was premiered at the time when the revolution was happening, so for her it's kind of connected to that event as well, even though it wasn't written related to the event, but when it was performed it was connected.
Going through the CD booklet, there are visuals of Anna Pogornia's Through the Closed Doors score. You actually see the door itself that has been impacted by the hatchet, and it's one of those moments in art where extreme situations and emotions require extreme expression and kind of things that are jarring and make us really think about the impact in the real world.
So that was the original of the door. I think when it was premiered in Toronto, I believe it was played through from the door. So the door is laying in the middle of the stage, like raised, maybe on a table, and then the two performers are walking around and playing it. Mm. And then since then, she published it in a digital, or you can buy a paper score, I imagine. So then we were playing it, a visual score. So you look at it, and then you can kind of see that in the booklet, how the music stuff gets wavy, it gets bigger, it gets smaller, it kind of shrinks together, and the notes becoming wavy or big and small and misplaced and all that. So it was very good, very interesting experience playing it that way, and also kind of beyond the music notation, really going for it and being together with the lines, and then seeing, and also being two musicians, so we'll have different understanding of it, what's immediately in front of you. So it was a lot of discussion, what do we want to do and how do we interpret it.
what does it mean to you as an artist and as a Ukrainian to, have this lens of the contemporary Ukrainian musical voice to express, your own personal feelings about this conflict in your home country?
Like, it was actually important to do this. And often I think when you perform something, like, it's for, the way I feel, it's for work, or if it's during the school, I was in school for so long, like all the recitals, like I choose the work that I want to play, and I play a lot of new music, but still it feels like it's for somebody else or it's something else. So it was when I, one of the projects that I started doing for myself, and it felt like an important one. And choosing all the different, I think it felt like I could really curate what I want on this album and to have different voices. And I looked for variety as well, and I wanted to show audiences abroad, because now it's in English. It is for Ukrainian audience, and I think the composers really liked what I recorded from their feedback. But it's really to showcase how different the new music can be, and I think like Sylvester with some people who are not really know new music or not big fans of new music, that's what they like, because it's very calm and peaceful and it's beautiful and it's in a way good like background music for people, like the symphonies, people put, late Beethoven symphonies, the background music and stuff like that. Like, it's not distracting. And then have very more edgy works, advanced extra techniques and virtuosic works. I wanted to kind of help flourish Ukrainian music, to showcase, to look at it and search for more works outside of this, to show how different it can be and just kind of support it at the time of hardships.
So obviously Ukraine has a deep lineage of incredible folk music, extraordinary musicians and music coming out of Ukraine. Where do you see this modern voice of Ukrainian contemporary music, and how do you see that evolving, and what is the message of Ukrainian contemporary music now?
When my album was released, so on Zoom, I had a few composers from the album attending, and then some other guests. So I think Zoltan Almashi and Oleg Bezborodko were there, and I had some questions prepared to ask them, and they said that since the beginning of this full-scale war in 2022, their message changed, that the main thing is now to communicate about Ukraine right now. So what they're living through, about the war, to get their word out there, and they're not so much worried about the absolute music, about kind of developing their style, some kind of abstract thing. It's very matter of fact about what is happening. So it's about the victims, about the war, so everything related to the war. And I think Boris Loganov was saying similar. It's just impossible to write anything that is not because you're so involved in it. Everything spins around the war, and especially for people who stayed there. It's just constant drones. People can tell with the sound, is it a drone? Is it a rocket being taken down? Is it the particles of rocket? Is it full rocket? Where it's going? So all of that people can tell just by being in their apartments. So of course their music is expressing that. Overall, for new music, I think, but I don't think I'm an expert to tell of just like different waves of like first, second, third generation and all of that, of what's exactly happening. But I would say Silvestrov is one of the the classics of the composers right now, and probably there's two more generations after him. So with the newest one being kind of my age in their 30s, and then the others before that in their 40s, 50s. That would be Bezborodko and Zoltan Almashi, so it's the generation after Silvestrov. So they're more experimental, but in a little bit different way. I say maybe they're a little bit more like consonant sounding overall. So it's not necessarily like consonant chords, but overall I think it's less crunchy. If you like listen to a lot of Ukrainian music, it's more maybe like a singing style, even within being dissonant and all of that. It's kind of a consonant, if you know what I mean. It's kind of hard to explain this as a general. So maybe now that I'm talking about it, because Ukrainian singing is such a important part of the culture, and I think like Ukrainian language is really good for singing because it has lots of vowels. And I remember in school we were learning something that like Italian is the best language for singing. I don't know if it's true or not, but it's like it has a lot of vowels. But then Ukraine is like close to that, maybe like next one or next three or something like that. That it has lots of vowels. It's nicer to sing at it. So there's lots and lots of songs, folk songs, different regions, obviously, because Ukraine is so versatile, and different holidays, different parts of the year have all the different songs. So maybe it's kind of related. It's a lot of singing style overall. And that's kind of, Zoltan Almashi's piece. So it is like a little bit different, but it's kind of very singing.
would you say are like the most important aspects of Ukrainian culture and tradition that come through in this album?
There's lots of folk traditions, of holidays, church, family relations, so lots of humor. So I think the opera being comic opera, it has lots of humor, and the piece itself has a lot of humor. The war, the stress of it, the people moving, or the air raid sounds, all the newcomers that are coming here and making new life for themselves. I just recently met wonderful Ukrainians who came here making their best for their kids. I think that's kind of maybe a little bit of that, just overcoming, and yeah.
Moving away from the album for just a moment, can you tell me about your personal relationship with the violin and growing up in Ukraine, and how those things are connected, and that the influence of those two elements on you as an artist and as a person?
Yeah, I grew up in Kiev, Ukraine. Right away, I went to music school, so that's very popular, and that's kind of a inheritance from USSR when things were funded by the government. The music schools were like a popular thing for everybody to put their kids in, to do some arts, because there were some quotas of what had to be done in terms of art. Kind of a good choice for my parents. They thought, yeah, it's a good thing to do. They put me on the piano first, then switched to violin, and then we had to do two instruments. And then I went to a really good school. It was called Kiev Children Academy of Arts. It had 4 different faculties, had music, visual art, ballet, and theater. So I was in a music faculty, so we had all the different classes, like math, geography, all of that, together with the solfege and music theory, all in the same in one day, and then had private lessons there, orchestra, all of that. So it was a great school. It influenced me so much. I think I have high standards of what I want, like from that school, because it was such a high level and also very friendly, and it was kind of one of the new schools that opened up after the breakup of the Soviet Union. It was a private school, I think, but it was available for Romania to attend, and then I get to meet lots of different artists there. So somebody was in ballet, and like I think that's part of it, of my research and my PhD was the ballet, some element of the ballet, and I think it might be because I just knew a lot about art overall, being in that school and seeing all the different art forms. Going to the school was always liked my violin. I'm a single child. That was like my main thing to do, just practice violin all the time. And then when I finished the school, finished 9 years in school, then I went to college, finished that in music as well. And then I was thinking of going to conservatory in Kiev or going somewhere abroad. And that was a popular choice, I think, partially because Soviet Union parents always were thinking, well, I don't know how it's going to be, always insecure of what's going to happen, because I had such a big crash of USSR breaking up. Nobody could expect that. That was a huge unexpected thing, so that affected everybody always looking like maybe going somewhere safer, just overall more predictable Western world. And that was one reason. And then the second one was looking for teachers that would click with me, that would be something a little bit different. I think I was looking for a different approach of learning violin, because I had different teachers and I kind of knew what it would be like. And so I was looking at Europe, and then somehow the first city where I went in Canada was Oleg Pokhanovsky. He was in Winnipeg, and he's Russian. So I met him. He came to Kiev to look for new students, I think some personal travel, and then I played for him, and then eventually recorded my audition, and then got in there with the scholarship. And I really loved him as a teacher, so that's how I came to Canada. And that was good choice. I think it gave me that what I was looking for, a different approach of learning, a little bit more flexibility, because it's a little bit stricter way of teaching where you're kind of more told what to do. It's very strong technically. School is very strong technically, but you're a little bit gated at what you can do. There's a certain way how you should play Bach, and you can't really look very much outside. You could look a little bit outside, but not too far. And here I was able to explore all the different things, and it really freed my way of playing. And I think that's why I'm able to do some of these things, look back into the music that I want to play. I can play anything I want and have no boundaries of that. I know I just can express myself, and that kind of Canada gave me this freedom of playing.
And tell me about what draws you to contemporary music.
The art continues developing. There's modern composers, so it's important to participate in that as the world continues going forward. So if we only play music from the past, it's very beautiful and great, and we all love it very much. But then it discourages composers, and it currently, because nobody is playing their music, and also audiences need to know about this is what's happening right now. This is the music, and helping to develop all those new works. That's first. Then on a personal level, I think new works often very current to what's happening, so they have a social factor in them. Overall, even if it's not a music that means something, that is written about the war, it's still related to the time that we live in, so it would be a little bit faster paced, like everybody always says, like, oh, Baroque, it was slower, you can play it that fast, everything was carriages, not cars, so we need to adapt to play the old music. So this is, I know what it means, I live in this world, so I understand all of this, all the cues, I just get it. And often I think with the visual arts, with the new visual arts, you have to come up with the meaning, what's there. Often it's a little bit abstract. The same with the music. It gives you this way of thinking for yourself what it can mean, engages you a little bit more actively because it is current. That's kind of to the previous point. If you have good relationship with the composers, you can work with them directly. So that's sometimes I worked with the composers directly when I worked some electronics music. Sometimes composers playing electronics with you. That's what kind of happened with me. Or you get a lot of feedback, or if somebody is writing piece for you. So there's lots of opportunities of actively being engaged and kind of co-composing it with the composers, which is super exciting, which is not possible with the music from the past.
what has the reaction from your Ukrainian community been to hearing this music and seeing their this conflict and their country depicted through music?
Yeah, I think everybody appreciated it being recorded. Definitely composers felt it was important. I think in Ukraine, like being professionally recorded and released as an album is not super common. So there's a lot of live music happening all the time. There's like opera and ballet happening every night, symphony orchestra, lots of chamber orchestras, all of that happening all the time. But recorded music is pretty rare. So I think for Zoltan Almashi, I think it was probably one of the first works, because for many of these, I think, Bezborodko, Almashi, and Loginov, it was one of the first works recorded professionally for them. So they were thrilled, and they loved the work. I think Solestrov is, of course, kind of a world composer right now. There's many, many recordings of his works. So then some of the friends in Ukraine, of course, they thought that was very important to record Ukrainian music because they are trying to compose. All the Ukrainians are trying to compose, to write music. They're trying to perform it live. So to have something that is always there, that is available for audiences outside of Ukraine. So it seems like Ukrainians, because they're dependent on the Western world to continue fighting, we're always trying to reach out to somewhere outside to show how talented we are, how great we're doing, how thankful we are for the help. So this is part of that. Look, we have this world-class music, and it's recorded, and it's there. So we have all this talent outside of Ukraine, and they're able to contribute too. So it's also kind of me being part of the people there. They're doing concerts live. I can do concerts this way while not being there physically, but also having composers that are currently composing, and they're just active, super active. It's not somebody from the past. This is it's kind of bringing everything together across the world in this global world that we live in.
So what do you hope the listener takes away from, their experience of this album?
So I thought it was kind of like a little bit of a journey. So with the Through Closed Doors, it starts with the knock. So it's kind of like a welcome knock, or somebody is knocking. I mean, there's so many meanings. The more I can think about it, it could be anything you want. So it could be a knock. The Russian army is coming. You didn't expect that. It was unexpected. A knock of somebody just coming in, as in welcome to listen to this album. So it could be anything. And then one of the things, so Through Closed Doors is, I think Anna said that it's a conversation through the doors. And then later on, it kind of took on its own life as we were practicing with Guillaume. So it was maybe two people speaking through the closed doors, not hearing each other, or yelling at each other, or not hearing. So there's a lot of that in the world of speaking and not hearing each other, not understanding, not being able, the border, all sorts of things. So I think it has lots of meanings that could think. And the music is passionate, has lots of pauses to think in it. So that could be, I think, I hope listeners can reflect if they want to reflect on a specific thing, what it means to them, or just generally ponder as they listen to it. So then Zoltana Almashi is a very beautiful piece, so it kind of takes you from that very passionate and strong of Podgorny into also passionate but more beautiful. The recurring themes, there's the different tempo changes, like different sections. It's a little bit kind of in a 20th century tradition. So it's a little bit maybe more understandable to some of the people. And so that just continues on being more maybe meditative, thinking about what's going on. Then the Sleep During Insomnia is the piece about the war. So the feedback that I've gotten from Canadian, I think, other than Ukrainian, so Canadian and European listeners, they really felt like claustrophobic, like as if they are closed in the apartment and they hear the breathing, the ticking, all that electronic sound, that the air raids. So it's kind of for people outside of Ukraine to feel what it's like being there while there was a war. So definitely for us as a quartet, when we were recording it, when we were rehearsing and recording and like re-recording some of the parts multiple times, making different takes, it was very hard mentally to listen to the air rates all the time, because like we understand what it means, and when we were not there, but we understand what it means, that all the images of people being there, and actually like it's hard even to hear it with no rockets there and to actually be there. So this is to understand, kind of to help people understand what it's like in Ukraine and get a little bit more empathy and kind of being there in the place. So it's going to be a little bit of a journey, and then going to Valentin Sylvester, very peaceful music. So that's kind of a call for peace, hopeful heaven for everybody, to just be at peace, don't have anything to worry about. There's no more soldiers, no more war. Everybody's alive. Everybody can meet their loved ones. No fathers are dead. No relatives are at war. Nobody's worried calling on the phones, are they alive or not. And for Sylvester, so it's very like distilled version of his music. It's very little. He says very little, but means a lot there. So it's very profound music. And for me, like it could be seen as very simplistic and it's just very few notes, but it has a very careful way of working, of writing it down, and of what is presented. So we're the same way practicing to have it that everything means something in that. So there's no note just played because it's on a page. If something means something. And then the Bezbrodko is very celebratory, powerful, and it's virtuosic. So it's kind of just meant to all the audience, just overall because of the technique and because of the type of piece it is. It is about like Ukrainian Cossacks. It's kind of old-timey soldiers. So that would be kind of a celebrating the victory of the war being over and going forward happy. And so that's kind of the hard piece of the war is somewhere in between, and then it finishes all with everybody's happy. Kind of the journey I hoped for the listener to have.
Thank you so much for being my guest today, Victoria, and sharing your insight and your art and your beautiful album with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me. I really appreciate interest to the album and your very thoughtful questions and interesting conversation.
You've been listening to Musing on CJSW 90.9 FM in Calgary, and I've been in conversation with Ukrainian-Canadian violinist Victoria Grynenko as part of our spotlight on extraordinary female creators for Women's History Month. Unbroken, the music of Ukraine, was recently released by Leaf Music and can be found on all major streaming platforms. Acknowledge and pay tribute to the traditional territories of the peoples of Treaty 7, which include the Blackfoot Confederacy, comprised of the Siksika, Piikani, and the Kainai First Nations, the Tsuut'ina First Nation, the Stoney Nakoda, including the Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Goodstoney First Nations, and the city of Calgary is also home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Districts 5 and 6. Until next time, thank you for supporting Canadian artists and live music in your community, and take care.